G'day guys, the unhealthiest perks in Dead by Daylight. Now before DBD Twitter gets their knickers in a twist, I said the unhealthiest perk, not the most overpowered. Very important distinction that I want you to actually remember. Now that's not to say the perk in question isn't overpowered, but we're focusing on it being unhealthy. So the perk we're talking about today is Vigil. We don't need to bait you any longer for that information. But quickly, the key distinction between something being overpowered and something being unhealthy is something overpowered usually means its numbers are cranked too high, whereas something being unhealthy actively harms the overall gameplay. For example, Smash Hit, which grants you a speed boost when you pallet stun the killer, is a healthy perk because you need to do something as the survivor that's somewhat difficult to get the reward. Now if that survivor gained 15 seconds of haste for stunning the killer, the perk would be overpowered, but it wouldn't be unhealthy because the core gameplay loop of the perk is still well designed, it's just the numbers are going to be cranked too high. So Vigil, what makes it unhealthy? Let's start with the effect that everybody knows it for. It reduces the exhausted timers of survivors by 40%. Now this alone is already questionable for a perk's effect. The main reason isn't even Vigil's fault, but the fault of exhausted perks as a whole. The reason being, our exhausted perks are the strongest and most common perks on the survivor role because they're just free value for the survivor for the entire match without actually having to do anything meaningful. Live, you literally vault a window and buy at minimum 10 seconds of time waste just for pressing spacebar. This can be done every 40 seconds by everybody on the survivor role. There are two exceptions for exhausted perks, these being Balanced Landing and Smash Hit, which both require you to actually do something meaningful to get value. Unfortunately, these are also the least common exhausted perks to see, since they're not only the hardest ones to use, sometimes they're outright unusable due to things out of your control. Balanced is very map dependent and Smash Hit is killer dependent. If you play against a nurse, Smash Hit is borderline useless, for example.
So long, you boys!
JC, this is a Vigil video, can we get back onto Vigil? You're right. What does this all have to do with Vigil? Well, Vigil directly buffs these perks by reducing the exhausted timer by 40%. When you're running Lithe and Vigil, which is the combination I was running, you get Lithe back in 24 seconds, which for a perk which can easily waste more than 24 seconds for doing basically nothing is absolutely insane. Vigil is directly buffing the already meta perks the survivors are using. I imagine if Behavior announced tomorrow a new killer perk that buffed all gen regression and blocking by 40%, there would be 300 posts on Reddit overnight and the forums would be flooded with posts claiming how it's completely broken. Yeah, survivors just have an equivalent and apparently that's okay. Now for those who are going to claim that the two aren't comparable,
you need to shut the fuck up!
Exhausted perks waste time on the killer and gen regression buys time for the killer. While they don't do the exact same thing, the end result is the same. It gets worse though guys, much worse. Behavior decided buffing the strongest perks in the game apparently wasn't strong enough of an effect because Vigil doesn't just affect exhausted timers, no, it affects every single status effect.
Oh my god! Wow!
Blindness, broken, exhausted, exposed, hemorrhage, hindered, mangled, and oblivious all get a 40% reduction in their uptime with this perk active. This is where we cross over to downright stupidity in design. Now, to understand why this is such a problem, I'm going to ask you a question. When you play Survivor, what perks do you see almost exclusively every single match? Gen regression and aura read perks. Every killer is using at least one of these two, usually most, if not the entire build, is made up of them because they're the strongest perks for killers and the most consistent. Now Vigil doesn't affect aura read or gen regression, however, do you know what it does affect? Almost every other perk in the game and subsequently every other build and playstyle. So what this perk is effectively doing is punishing the killer for not running the meta.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Let's use Friends Till the End as an example. This perk exposes the obsession for 20 seconds and reveals their aura for 10 seconds when another survivor is hurt. With Vigil, this gives the killer 12 seconds to try and get the expose down, killing it as an effect for the perk, and I can prove that with this clip. Shit. Oh wait, never mind, I've got fucking Vigil, who gives a shit? I'm just gonna stand here. That's what I'm gonna do, because he's gonna... Look, he's there. I'm so confident that he's not going to down me. With the exposed.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
This also transfers to other perks like Hubris.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit
That become completely obsolete thanks to Vigil. It also reduces the exposed down of Hubris down to 12 seconds on a perk that's never used anyway because the exposure is too short. At least with Friends to the End, it keeps the aura. Hubris just becomes completely useless. This is just exposed we've gone over too, but it is the same for every status effect that it affects. Vigil is single-handedly nerfing hit and run, exposed builds, sneak builds, blindness builds, essentially deletes every single hinder perk in the game, and subsequently any killer that relies on hinder with their power, like the clown, also get nerfed. The rarest of all builds, being broken builds, also get annihilated, all while simultaneously buffing the strongest perks on the survivor role. This is where it precedes being overpowered and being downright unhealthy. A perk should not have this much power. In fact, on screen are all the perks affected by this perk, and by the way, it doesn't end here, because it also nerfs a significant amount of add-ons on the killer roster, making it affect even more builds. Surely, it can't get any worse though.
No.
Well, yes it can, because not only is it annihilating any build reliant on these effects, the killer doesn't even know it's in play. So you can have your entire build or playstyle rendered completely useless and you won't even know. Not only this, but it further buffs the strongest survivor perks outside of exhausted effects. Let's take the build that I was running for example. I'm running Shoulder the Burden, the single strongest anti-tunnel perk in the game, allowing me to steal a hook state from a teammate. Now this perk exposes you for 40 seconds, so there is actually some kind of downside to the stupendously broken effect that it has. But Vigil also essentially removes the downside of this perk, making me only exposed for 24 seconds. Meaning, unless I am unhooking in the killer's face, the downside to this incredibly powerful perk doesn't even exist. That means that this build that I'm running gives me free value on the killer every 24 seconds with live, free hook state trading with Shoulder the Burden, and simultaneously nerfs any build the killer may have that deviates from the meta. Are you starting to see why this is so incredibly unhealthy as a perk?
I think we did a pretty good job so far.
Surely it ends there though, right? The perk also applies to any player in a 16 meter radius, so players near you also get the benefits of this perk. Not only that, but it stacks with other instances of Vigil, so two players running Vigil within 16 meters of each other can stack their effects.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Why does it stack behavior? Who thought that was a good idea? The only thing that this benefits are Swifts, and they're the last thing that needs an advantage in this game, right up there with the nurse. It just never ends with this perk. That means that Vigil buffs the most brain-dead survivor perks that are already meta, buffs the strongest anti-tunnel perk in the game, directly nerfs almost every non-meta build on killer from add-ons to perk, and base kit killer stuff, while not affecting the meta build and not telling the killer it's happened so they can try and play around it, while buffing arguably the most broken aspect of the game being Swifts, all while being completely passive. I don't know guys, do we think this perk is doing enough yet?
I hate you so much, I want to shoot you in your face.
Alright.
This perk is without a doubt the most unhealthy, overtuned and overbloated perk in the entire game, and it's not even close. Imagine if there was a killer perk that buffed every status effect, gen regression and gen blocking by 40%. It would be the most used perk overnight, and I guarantee you people would be endlessly complaining about it, and yet Vigil just exists. The main reason I made a video about this is because I changed my build since they ruined lightweight, and I was trying this out for 2 weeks, and the sheer amount of value that I gained with this perk was completely disgusting. At bare minimum, this perk should only be affecting exhausted, or there needs to be a killer equivalent so it can actually be countered, and it certainly shouldn't be stacking with other instances of itself. There is no reason a perk should have the amount of power that this perk does, making entire builds and playstyles obsolete without the killer even knowing, especially off meta builds, while simultaneously buffing the strongest perks in the game. We should be encouraging variety, not killing it. I know someone will say it in the comments, this doesn't affect Maya's or Ghostface's base kit exposed, so don't worry about that if you play those two killers and you don't know about this perk for whatever reason. And no, You don't see this perk in every match, but that's not the point. I haven't seen more than a handful of Shoulder the Burdens, even though it's arguably the most game-changing perk in the game. A perk should not be holding this much power over so many different aspects of the game. It's nearly a 50% nerf across the board for any perk that actually spices up DBD's gameplay without any counterplay or tell, and that's just ridiculous.
Emotional, damn it!
Anyway, that's all from me, gamers. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.